In this video, we're going to discuss how do we use an R value to describe the linear correlation in a scatter plot. So a lot of the times when we have real world situations, right, they don't look like a perfect line, but they look like they are resembling a line. And so we want to talk about how can we describe that relationship. Does it very strongly relate to a line or very weakly? Because eventually in the next class we're going to be drawing a line of best fit. And what we want to know is how much can we trust the line that we're going to make. Okay, so in a situation like this, where our points look like this, and pretty much look like a nice perfect line, we would call this a perfect positive correlation, because first of all, it's positive. It's going up when I'm reading it from left to right. So the way that I would explain positive is basically as x increases, so does y. So whatever the thing that I am talking about, let's say that I am describing weather to ice cream cones. Well, the higher that the weather gets, the more ice cream cones are sold. Now, also, this can be said backwards. The lower that the weather gets, the less ice cream cones I'm getting. So they're going basically in the same direction. And that's what positive means when I'm talking about a real world correlation. The numerical description that I would give this, which is what we call the R value, or the correlation coefficient, would be 1. So basically, if you are 1, you are a perfect correlation. You will basically look exactly like a line. Now, something like this, it looks like it's pretty close to a line. It definitely is going in the shape of a line, and our points are definitely pretty close together. It is looking like it's going up as well. So as x increases, y also increases. However, it is not as nicely put together as this one. They're not as close as this one. So this one isn't going to be a perfect one. It's going to be a 0.8. Close to 1, number really, really close to 1. And this is what we would call strong positive. It's not perfect, it's strong positive. Now here, my points are also going up, but they're kind of pretty spread apart. So I would call this a weak positive correlation. And again, it's a number that is, it's a little bit more far away from 1. If something has no correlation, so just a scatter plot with everything just scattered all over the place, then we would give the R value to be a 0. 0 means that there is absolutely no correlation. Now, here we're looking at negative. So what does it mean to be negative? Negative obviously means that as x increases, my y decreases. So they're going in the opposite direction. So something in a real world that would have a negative correlation is probably, let's say, the uses of coats as the weather increases. So as the weather increases, the uses of coats are going to decrease, right? We're going to go down. We're going to see less of people wearing jackets and coats, right? So that's something that would be negative. So notice that for a perfect negative correlation, so it's pretty much a line, but it's going down, we would use the number -1. So the only difference between a perfect positive and a perfect negative is that one has a plus and one has is a negative number, right? Now, a strong negative correlation is still really, really close to 1. So we're still looking for close to 1, but it has a negative on it. So my R value is going to still be negative, but really close to 1. And then weak, again, it's going to be closer to 0. It's going to look like this. It's going to be closer to 0, but it's going to have a negative. Okay, so let's go ahead and put this into notes. This is basically the number line that describes an R value. An R value can only be from -1 to 1, so you're never going to have an R value of 2 or 3. That just doesn't exist. There is a formula for the R value. In the next class, we're going to actually be finding the R value using our calculator because the formula is pretty fancy. For right now, we just want to understand what the R value means. So this is a value between -1 and 1, and it is referred to as the correlation coefficient. It basically tells us how strong this correlation is to a line. and how much we can trust if we make a line of best fit for it to help us make predictions. Okay, if you have something close, let's say to positive 1, it's going to be a perfect linear correlation, and it's going to be positive, right? So let's look here what word would describe the numbers that are, let's say, from 0.5 to 0. Well, if they're from 0.5 not from 0.5 to 0, from 0.5 to 1. If they're from 0.5 to 1, then they're really close to 1, and this would be a strong linear correlation. Now, if our R value is from 0 to 0.5, then it's going to be weak. Now let's look at the negatives. If I'm going from 0 to 0.5, then I am far from my negative, my perfect -1, so you are still weak. Yes, you're negative, but you're weak. And then from -0.5 to -1, you're going to be strong. The difference between my positive R values and my negative R values are basically the type of correlation, right? My positive R values means it's a positive correlation. And so we talked about this before. So let's go ahead and take out the words that we've already used. So we've used weak twice, we've used strong twice, we've used correlation, and we've used positive. So it basically means that as a positive correlation coefficient implies that the values either increase or decrease together. They're going in the same direction. So kind of like we talked about with temperature and ice cream cones. If one increases, the other one increases. If one decreases, the other one decreases. And so when I would plot it, it's going to have a positive slope because there's a positive relationship between them. So increase, as one increases, they both increase or decrease, let's say, increase or decrease together. So let's go ahead and take that off our list. We have increase and decrease. All right, now, a negative correlation. So that means if my R value is negative, then this means that they're going on the opposite direction. So sort of like we talked about the temperature outside and the people wearing coats. That has a negative, right? They're going in opposite directions. So as one value increases, the other one is going to do the opposite and decrease. So increases and decreases. And so let's go ahead and get rid of those words there, and negative as well. Now, if you have a 0, that means that there's absolutely no correlation between the two things. They are not related at all. All right, so I hope you found this video helpful and you've taken really good notes and understand what an R value is when I'm talking about these scatter plots, right? We're going to attach numbers to these things that are going to tell us how well things are correlated or not correlated at all.